Good afternoon to those of you who have joined a couple of minutes early. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today, Education in Today's Hybrid World. Grab a coffee, get yourself comfortable. That's your 2-minute warning, and I'll be back again to kick things off in just a couple of minutes. Okay, a few more people have joined. Thank you so much. Make yourselves comfortable, grab a drink. The webinar will be starting in just over 1 minute. Thank you for joining and look forward to seeing you soon. It's top of the hour, so thank you everybody who's on time, and those people who are fashionably late. We're going to give just another minute before we start today's proceedings, so still time to grab yourself a coffee before we start today. Okay, so welcome everybody who's joined, nice and on time. Love that. My name's Jane Hammersley. I work for ClubTech Group, and we are working with Microsoft today to talk to you about Microsoft Surface Hub 2S in a hybrid world. But nothing to do with me. Let's hear from the people we want to hear from. So I'm really delighted to introduce you to Renee Abrams. Sorry, Renee. And Renee is going to do an introduction for us. Renee.
Yes, thank you, Jane, and everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We're thrilled to be joining this new series of webinars. So there'll be 4, highlighting today Hub in a Hybrid World. I am a Partner Development Manager for Microsoft, solely focused on Hub, our US commercial channel. So there's a lot of evolving things around us and a lot to share. So buckle in, as Jane said, make sure you have your cup of coffee. There's going to be some amazing statistics, some great insights that you don't want to miss to share with your customer. Microsoft continues to support partners like you with the right information and collateral. We want to make sure that we're enabling you to engage with your customers, focusing on Hub, and today specifically highlighting the 2S in education environments. It really, together with ClubTech and Microsoft, it gives you a unique perspective, we're going to be using to share stories from successful deployments from all around the world. So we're bringing you truly the best in class. Something else I want to remind you of for all the participants, Where do I go to get some support as it relates to Surface Hub? Just a reminder, at all three of our distributors, so Synnex, Tech Data, Ingram Micro, we all have dedicated Surface Hub champs. They're there to support you from pricing to programs, just to getting you content. So make sure you're reaching out to those resources. We also have, this is new in market, it's called Learn More with Surface. We have a special offer giving you very aggressive discounts in the education space for qualified customers. So again, reach out to your Surface Hub champ at each of the disties. If you don't know who that is, follow up with us. We're happy to point you in the right direction, but they'll be able to guide you on that Learn More with Surface Hub offering and get you the discounts that you're looking for to stay aggressive. And just furthermore, as a hybrid working model, for employees emerges, this world we continue to live in and evolve. Some will continue to work remotely, some will return to an office space, and some will elect or be required to adjust to a mix of the two. To meet these needs, companies are turning to technological solutions to help employees transcend physical spaces, thereby dissolving the boundaries between in-office and remote workers. A recent study by Gartner stated that 82% of survey respondents intend to permit remote working some of the time as employees return to the workplace. So it's important that we're asking our customers not just about their return to work motions, but how they're reimagining the workplace. Leaders still need their teams to, build these meaningful relationships, share ideas, and work securely being key, right, toward common goals. This information and much more can be found in recent published Surface Hub ebook. So we have that access and a plethora of resources available for you. And we'll be able to share some of that after today's webinar. So enough about kind of setting the stage. I'm excited you're here. Jane, I'm going to pass it back over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Renee. That was amazing. I just made a note of Learn More with Surface Hub. And I hope for the resellers out there that got your attention when Renee talked about extensive discounts into education, because it certainly got my attention there. A couple of things I want to pick up on. Renee, you talked about doing things differently, and that's exactly what we're talking about here in the hybrid world for education. What we know, and we know this because the UN have done an extensive study in education and the impacts of coronavirus or COVID-19. We know that actually in the peak, 1.5 billion learners were affected adversely because they couldn't actually access their learning and teaching environments, their educational institutions. Right now, it's still 1 billion learners that are being affected. So we want to be in a position to actually help that with the technology services that we can provide and support. And it's not just about devices, it's also about platforms such as Teams. But with that many people being affected, we're certainly in a position worldwide to help. But what does that look like if you are in that learning environment? Well, educators, I think it's fair to say we're currently in the world's biggest experiment of remote working, remote teaching and remote learning. And that new environment had to pivot, to switch extremely quickly. Now, online learning wasn't available for everybody in every country, so there was things like radio and television, and even old school paper and books being sent out to students. Imagine though, looking at, as we see there, the US number is highlighted, almost 80% of that primary, lower secondary, as we call it, upper, that university, higher and further education, 80% of those learners immediately switched to online learning. But what was that really like? What was it like for them to be physically present one day and then be remote the next? Even the wording is quite scary. actually now I'm remote and I'm still having to learn. And you see the figures there, but there's nearly 2,000 higher education institutions in North America. So that's the opportunity size right there. But also don't forget about things like business schools, because business schools, 13,000 in across the world, is a huge opportunity for Surface Hub. We'll talk probably a little bit more towards the end of this webinar. But what you've got here is an opportunity that really is expansive, and it keeps expanding. So corporate training environments, as I said, business schools, higher education, further education. All of these establishments are all using Hub quite extensively. I've got a couple of great examples that are actually ongoing at the moment, and that is a university in Italy, where Collabtech have been involved in deploying multiple tens of hubs. Alabama, the state of Florida, all of which we have been supporting resellers like yourselves to deploy Surface Hubs across those organisations. So for your information, Collabtech, if you don't know us, we work through the channel. We don't sell hardware, which is one of the reasons we're working with Microsoft right now. We're not a competitor. We don't sell hardware. We want to help support this channel, and we've got over 5 years experience of working with Hub. So let me tell you a little bit about that, but I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Yazin, who's going to tell you more stories about how Hub makes such a difference in this educational world.
Hello and welcome to Hub in a Hybrid World. My name is Yassine Hayo. I am a collaboration specialist at Collabtech. We help people work better together. About 12 months now, Professor Kellerman of New South Wales University in Australia said something absolutely remarkable when he moved his lectures from being in classroom to being virtually online. He noticed that when he installed his Surface Hub that Collabtech helped him install, he noticed that there was a 1,000% increase in engagements and questions that students were making compared to prior to that when it was in-class lectures. To give you a bit of an idea of what that means, there was about 20 questions in classroom, and in a virtual space there's about over 200 chat messages and engagements that students are giving. This of course allows the professor and many others like him to deliver a much higher quality service because of the feedback that the professors would be getting. But that still begs the question, what has caused this sudden shift in behavior? Why have things changed all of a sudden? Why are people so emboldened to now suddenly begin asking questions? Well, the answer is twofold. First of all, one element is Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams creates a virtual front of classroom environment for every student. So they have an equal opportunity to see, hear, and understand the content that's being delivered. The second side to this is the Surface Hub itself. The Surface Hub is a central all-in-one hub that allows you to work with things like Microsoft Teams, as well as bring in and import content from the web, from PowerPoint, Word, Excel, pictures, and documents. It allows you to annotate and really take a deep dive into what it is you're trying to do. The boundaries being basically what your imagination can muster up. These two things together have created an absolutely revolutionary way of working with many educators around the world who found this extremely useful. Ourselves at Collabtech have been involved in deploying thousands of these Surface Hubs to educators all across the globe, and we've essentially compiled this into a 15-minute webinar of what you need to know to best position this to your customers in education. So let's delve straight into this. If there were 3 things that I would want you to remember from today's session, it would be these 3 things here. The Surface Hub's main strengths are its ability to dissolve boundaries, its agility, and the mobility that the Surface Hub provides. Essentially meaning that the Surface Hub dissolves boundaries between the physical and the virtual space, allowing you to work as if you were working in real life, or I'd say non-virtually, but keep the same way of working on the Surface Hub. The agility the Surface Hub provides means that you are able to import and export content whilst also moving things around using the mobility aspect of the Surface Hub. And this mobility isn't just virtual mobility, it's also physical mobility. Because the Surface Hub comes in a steel case stand, you're also able to configure an APC battery to the Surface Hub. This means that you can actually move the Surface Hub around, you can unplug it and wheel it to another room without even leaving your meeting, which is pretty revolutionary. Let's take a look at some real life examples to get a bit of a better idea of how educators are actually using the Surface Hub. So let's go into documents. This is pretty much the bread and butter of how people are interacting with the Surface Hub. It is very typical for educators to have a student submit a piece of work and for them to then do the assessment side of it on the Surface Hub. So they may sit there and encourage the student by showing them the things that they may have been getting wrong and the things that they're getting absolutely spot on and that they should continue doing. And this, of course, can allow a student to go from a C- to a very generous A+ with high quality feedback sessions like these. This is extremely typical and it's extremely typical usage of a Surface Hub. You're not just limited to content that you already have on the Surface Hub. You can also bring in content from external places. So if you have something from somewhere else that you'd like to bring in to show as an example to your students, you can very easily bring that into the Surface Hub at the click of a button without breaking any sweat. This will then allow your student to have an example of how they may want things done. The other way in which the Surface Hub is very often used is in the usage of literature, right? So many professors will bring in literary classics or books like this, the autobiography or the biography, I should say, of Napoleon, and use the Surface Hub to highlight the bits that are extremely important that they would want to highlight in the lesson. So this provides extreme clarity for the students. They can see exactly what it is that the professor wants to bring their attention to, or any educator of any industry, primary school, high school, in corporate training as well. There's many different ways in which you can use the Surface Hub to educate. In many ways, it is used to educate people. Another way in which the Surface Hub is used is using the notes. Now, of course, we know that you can have actual handwritten notes on the Surface Hub, which we are used to, and I mean, the pen flows extremely well and it's very, very easy and intuitive to use. However, the Surface Hub does still take it one step further, and this is one of the use cases that I've seen many professors use that they find extremely useful. That is to take a snapshot to take a picture essentially of something that they've been working on using physical handwritten notes, to import that picture into the Surface Hub and digitize that with such ease that you are now able to actually interact with it as if it was digital ink. And this is revolutionary in its usages, because again, this is talking about dissolving the boundaries between the physical and the virtual space, and you can do that painlessly without any effort. Now, I'd like to remind you just how easy this looks, and at the same time how hard this would have been many years ago. If you wanted to do this, you'd have to print out a load of sheets of paper, stick them onto the board and start annotating them, and if you make one annotation, you pretty much can't erase it unless you've done it in pencil. So there are many different elements as well, factoring in the time that the students as well as the professors take to actually travel to the lecture. If you're using a Surface Hub, it's saving you literally hours and hours of work whilst not really compromising on the quality of the lecture. The other thing I wanted to bring your attention to is how the Surface Hub interacts beautifully with Microsoft Teams. Because of Microsoft Teams' compatibility with the Surface Hub, joining and using the Surface Hub alongside Microsoft Teams has never been easier. You're able to share your screen. You're able to share your screen on Microsoft Teams with all of the participants and all of the students that are in the lecture, and they're able to see your screen in the same way that anybody else would be seeing it. So this is talking about that equal opportunity for students to see, hear, and understand what the lecturer is saying. Now, that still does leave the question, what causes this, what we like to call internally, this Kellerman effect of a 1000% increase in engagements by the students? And the answer is very simple. What many lecturers will now do is they will have the chat window open alongside their lecture. And this will allow them to keep an eye on the questions and the discourse that students are having. If a professor or an educator happens to see something that they would want to take a bit of a deep dive to, can simply take a screen clipping and import the question to the Surface Hub and decide that they're going to talk about it. So if a lecturer would want to answer a question that one of his students would have, he can do so with such ease. That isn't the quadratic formula. I seem to have forgotten it, which is what they're asking for. But yeah, so this is one example where they can actually pick out the question and answer it directly if need be. But sometimes there are some questions which other people within the class might know. In this case, another student, for example, would be answering the question, and the lecturer could give it the tick of approval and continue on with the lesson. So the reason why people are more willing to engage and interact in Microsoft Teams and in the virtual sphere is because of three things that are not present in physical on-site lectures. And that is the fact that, one, there is less anxiety involved in typing a message into a chat as opposed to putting your hand up and interrupting a lecture. Although many lecturers don't mind it, some students don't feel as comfortable with asking questions in person as they do online. The second thing is that there is communal information sharing available on the Surface Hub. If you have a bunch of students in the chat, a student could ask a question that another student could then address, and all the lecturer would have to do is essentially give it that stamp of approval. The second thing is the disruption. Because of the fact that it is on Microsoft Teams and it is in the chat, the disruption is very, very minimal. You won't have any disruption unless the professor decides to specifically address the person that is speaking. So to have done this in person would be much more difficult to replicate in an in-classroom environment. And this is how Microsoft Teams essentially unlocks the capabilities of the Surface Hub in a beautiful way. Another thing which many educators are using is the 85-inch, which we are going to go into right now.
As mentioned earlier, the Surface Hub fosters collaboration, communication, and innovation by allowing researchers and professors to focus on delivering a quality session. In some cases, some more real estate is needed, for uses such as in larger lecture halls and for a smoother multitasking experience. The new and improved 85-inch Surface Hub fills those needs. Unfortunately, one downside is that it doesn't quite fit in my little home office, so we've got one of our colleagues from our Mesa office to show you around. The beautiful 85-inch matte display is extremely easy on the eyes. Whiteboarding affords you space generally reserved for traditional whiteboards, in addition to the infinite virtual canvas on offer by the 85-inch. The widescreen display allows for more space for collaboration and multitasking. You can view complex 3D models whilst utilizing the display, without compromising on quality. Teaching professionals in fields requiring these, such as the STEM and medical fields, will no doubt find the ease of navigation revolutionary. The 85-inch is especially perfect for educators who wish to multitask, whilst having minimal reduction in the size of either window when compared to the 50-inch. As you can see, you get close to a full-size representation of both windows on the 85-inch. PowerPoint presentations on the 85-inch now appear bigger and better than before. Intimate details can be viewed on the Surface Hub's crystal clear display, whilst leaving plenty of space for the presenter to do their job, without obstructing the content. You can swipe through at the click of a finger. External content pulled into the hub, such as Word documents that need assessing, will allow educators and students alike to take a practical hands-on approach to learning. There is more space than ever before for highlights and annotation, leaving no room for confusion. The 100-point touch sensitivity means multiple people can use the 85-inch at the same time. Just make sure you are adhering to local social distancing regulations.
So there you have it. The Surface Hub 2S feels almost tailor-made for your customers in education, and I'm sure they will agree. The ability for you to dissolve boundaries between the physical and the virtual workspace and have them working together in harmony. The agility that the Surface Hub gives you, where you can import and export documents, pictures, videos, and many, many more things with relative ease. And the mobility of the Surface Hub, when you include an APC battery with it, the physical mobility, meaning you can actually cart it around places without losing any power. This is proven to be very valuable for many educators, in addition to the current setup where they are using Microsoft Teams to drive up engagements by students and to take the anxiety, the disruption, and the difficulty out of engagements with students and causing that 1000% increase. So speak to your customers about the Surface Hub 2S. They may find it very useful. Thank you very much.
So Yazin, thank you so much for that amazing deep dive into education using Microsoft Surface Hub 2S. Okay, so I can't remember if I told you this at the beginning of the webinar, but there's a Q&A section. Please feel free to post any questions to us in there. We're going to come to that in the next couple of moments. We have got some in there already, so thank you for those people who've posted. We will be getting to those, but please post your questions in there and we'll come to them. So I just want to pick up on a couple of things that Yazin said, apart from telling me, of course, that he doesn't have a large enough home office for his 85-inch. I think we'd all like one of those in our home office. I know I certainly would. So what we're looking at here is, I talked about the world's biggest experiment in education, in remote learning and teaching, but actually we're relearning learning. We're taking an awful lot of what we're all learning now about how we deliver effective and productive and efficient education. We're all learning that right now. So whatever happens in the future, we're calling this a hybrid world, but whatever happens next is we're actually relearning learning, and we'll take a lot of these into that. You heard Yazin talking about digital workflow, and that's Teams. Teams can be the digital workflow, which is end-to-end, and Hub really does accelerate Teams, and it amplifies the ability of what Teams can do. So it's not just a data repository, it's not just a chat functionality, it really does amplify what Teams can actually do for us here. It dissolves physical and virtual boundaries. Again, super important to really take that story to your customer about the agility. You know, use it as steel case roam stand. I have one here with your OPC battery, and actually Hub can go wherever the learning needs to be delivered. And the agility, obviously physically very agile, but the agility now with the Teams OS version to deliver almost any scenario. We didn't talk about it too much, but there's also a version of Teams Pro that you can actually put on Surface Hub, and actually then Teams becomes, or Hub becomes, your own personal device. So I'm just going to share with you one more thing here from Yazin's video, just picking up on Yazin's video, which is he talked about the Kellerman effect. Now, there's a great video with Dr. Kellerman. I probably would call him a super user or a power user. Amazing use of Surface Hub and Teams into his lectures. It really is worth a watch. So we will send you a full link to the whole YouTube video, really worth a watch to see how he does that. We'll also send you a link right after this webinar, actually it'll be tomorrow, of a new 2-minute video that we've got to share with you, to send to your customers, to show them very succinctly in 2 minutes what Surface Hub 2S can do for them in their education environment. We're going to be sending you links to a new ebook. I think Renee mentioned it, a new ebook dedicated to Surface Hub 2S and a new infographic. Don't forget at the top of the hour as well, where Renee talked about those, what did I write down here? Learn more with Surface Hub. Substantial discounts available for education. So I hope you've got some questions for Renee on that as well. So we'll be following up with you on that. Again, let me just shout out, if anybody's got any questions, please post them now, because what we'll do straight away is jump to some of those questions. Let me see on this question. Right, let me bring Renee back in here, because I think you'll probably be the best person to answer this one. We've got a question about, oh, surprise, 85-inch here. I'm not surprised, it's coming up in all the webinars we're doing at the moment, because we're doing a global set of webinars. So this one is about the 85-inch and it's about availability. Probably the age-old question. I know when I was in distribution, we talked about availability of new products a lot. What can you tell us, Renee?
Yeah, great question. We are seeing a ton of demand on the 85. We're just excited. You know, it's been announced for well over a year now, and we finally are getting inventory on this product. I would encourage you to reach out to your distributors to get firm timelines. But just to give you a general idea, our first shipments will be arriving at the disties late January, early that first week into February. You do have to account for, you know, ship times to your customer, but just to give you that general timeline, product, the first wave of inventory is arriving late January, early February. Reach out to your disties. They are working in a FIFO method, so first in, first out. So if you haven't gotten your orders in yet, please do. They are working to prioritize those in that first in, first out manner. And if you have any questions about pricing or SKUs, again, our Surface Hub champs can help you out with that. And like I said, product is in, we've got demo SKUs, we've got TAA, and we've got our normal Hub 85, along with, I'll just throw it out there, plenty of inventory on our 50-inch. So we've got inventory ready to go. So don't forget about the 50-inch opportunity as well.
Very, very well said. Thank you, Renee. So yes, reminder on the 50-inch. There's still a huge demand, and I would say from our side of the fence, just providing services to the channel resellers like yourselves, is we're seeing quite a pickup right now in demand for deployments, both proof of concepts and full deployments. So, which is fantastic. Renee, just be on ready to go. I'm going to ask you one more question. It's about availability. This time, availability of the steel case Roam and the APC battery.
Yeah, great question. So just transparently, we're working with two vendors, Steelcase and also Salamander. So Steelcase has been in all of our marketing content. You've seen the roaming stands, wall mounts. We also have another vendor called Salamander that is in our DFS catalog. So if you're looking for another option, transparently speaking, on the 85, we've got wall mounts ready to go. The ruling stands are a little bit behind on Steelcase. However, if you do have an immediate demand for a rolling stand, Salamander does have an option that we can work with some inserts on their just general stand that have been certified, so you don't have to worry. But so Steelcase, you're looking at for the roaming stand, that March timeframe. If you're looking for the wall mount, disties are expected to have inventory. And then if you have an immediate need for the 85 rolling stand, again, we have Salamander as an option. Again, reach out to your distributors to get pricing on those stands. That's something else that they can help you with. And they can also talk to you about what inventory looks like for them.
Wonderful. Subsequent question. what's the battery life on
Oh,
the
yes.
2S?
You asked about that. The batteries, again, I'm going to point you to the batteries only available on the 50-inch. So just clarify that there is no APC battery for the 85-inch. So just clarifying moment. But Salamander, again, I'll give another call out to them. They do have some nice accessories you can attach. So if you do have a rolling stand and you need to kind of move it around, they have a nice Ethernet and power cord that is extendable and retractable. So there's some nice accessories there that you can accommodate for. So thank you for reminding me about the battery there, Jane.
Wonderful. Thank you, Renee. That's brilliant. We are going to turn, there's another question here, and it's a little too technical for me because it's quite in depth. So I'm going to bring my colleague Ruben, and Ruben is our collaboration specialist, or one of our collaboration specialists. Ruben, I am going to ask you a question that's come in about how Hub, when would you recommend Hub, in what circumstance, and when would you recommend MTR? Now, MTR, for those who don't know, is a Microsoft Teams room, and then talk to us about Hub and MTR working together. Okay, Ruben, you are live.
Awesome, thanks for that, Jane. Yeah, it's a really good question. So MTR, as you mentioned, is a device to host these Teams meetings that you might be attending. But essentially what you want to think about when choosing between an MTR or Hub is really the utilization in the room. So an MTR is going to be static. It's an asset that makes the room come alive and allows you to bring your room into the meeting. However, you're not going to be doing a lot of collaboration on a whiteboard, for instance, or you're not going to be able to present data visually unless it's already on a file like a PowerPoint or a Word file. Where the Hub comes in and really transforms it is it gives you this whiteboard, this digital space where you can visualize things, you can communicate in new ways. So you have to think a little bit and about the utilization of the room. And again, in education, what I've seen is the back office sort of administrative space. That's where they'll be using the MTR, where they just have meetings reoccurring every day, and they're sharing files and they're talking. And then the professors, in my experience, have been the ones utilizing Hub for that really engaging visual demonstrations. However, they're not separate completely. You can bring them in together. You can extend your MTR experience with coordinated join and actually bring a Hub into that room, so you have a little bit more versatility. I think that they pair very well together, but it really kind of depends on the utilization. And it's a conversation that we also then have with the customer, understand exactly what they expect the room to do, and then we can kind of map it out from there.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ruben. Thank you very much. And if it looked dark where Ruben is, it is. It's 6:30 p.m. for Ruben. Ruben's based in Germany. He's one of our European collaboration specialists. So thank you for that comprehensive review. So just to recap, Ruben talked about proximity join and co-join, a fairly recent feature that Hub and Microsoft Teams rooms work together. In fact, even your mobile device will work with that. So any device that's on Teams, you walk into an environment that also recognises the device on Teams, and those devices, they essentially talk to each other and they work out the best video and audio to use from the devices that are available. So an amazing addition and super unique. There's a couple more questions, and I think I'll probably just take these really quickly. One is, how long is the battery life on the APC battery with Surface Hub 2S? Thank you, Renee, reminding me 50-inch only. Now, I did just check. I'm going to hold my hands up, and I just, in our WhatsApp group, just said to my collaboration specialist, just remind me. So it is a maximum of 100 minutes on the battery life. I suppose it could be slightly longer or slightly shorter depending on how much usage that's getting, but they're telling me 100 minutes is what's being published, and then you've got really an hour and a half to recharge. So hope that's clear. And another one that's come in, probably the last one, unless somebody wants to sneak another question in, which is, this one made me laugh. how do you get the 85-inch into an elevator? Can you get it into an elevator? So from our experiences with the 84-inch, we had fun and games getting it to any high floor, as most of you probably know if you were supporting Hub 1. The 85-inch didn't go into elevators, so we did things like stop traffic in early morning, got cranes, put it in through windows, taking doors apart. No, not anymore. The 84-inch has an amazing case that's designed for the hub to actually turn on its side. There's a plastic area on the side. It's like a slip area, so you can actually push the hub, and it's 40% lighter as well, so much more easy to move around. But thanks for that question, whoever put that in the chat. That did remind me of some great stories. Again, collaboration is the name of the game for CollabTech, and we want to support you in any way we can to deploy hubs to your customers, whether that's a POC motion or a full deployment. We have a service that available through your distributors. Again, Renee mentioned them all at the top. So we've got Ingram, Synex and Tech Data. We work with all of those distributors to support you on that. All that's left for me to say is thank you so much for joining us. We couldn't do this without you. We want to give you as many stories as possible to help you when you're in front of customer. We're going to send all these links to you as well, so you've got these to use. We are also working on a number of other pieces of content that will be coming out to you in the next few weeks. As a reminder, same time, same place next week. Well, not same place, you'll have a different link, but we are talking about manufacturing next week and the impact on manufacturing for COVID, but also Hub. And actually, I heard an amazing story that CollabTech has been involved in today, which we're going to include in next week's webinar, so don't miss that. We're then going to talk about Hub in the financial services sector, and then we're going to finish off Hub in the public sector. So all that's left for me to say is thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Renee. Thank you, Ruben, for being our collaboration specialist on demand. And thank you very much for attending. Look out for the link to this webinar in your inbox tomorrow. And please reach out if you have any questions for any of us. Thank you.
Thank you.